Hello, fellow crazies of the interwebs. I think it sounds noble on paper to want to become better than how you already are, to break your limits and grind towards your potential, but I feel like self-improvement has a shadow side people often overlook, not because they're trying to be negligent of some of the downfalls, they're simply not aware of them. One of the big ones is intentionality, I guess that's what I would like to call it. The source or the why you want to improve. Like, do you want to improve because you genuinely care about your well-being and want to learn how to live your best life? That's probably the type of self-improvement people want, but the drive of most people's self-improvement is probably a little more sinister. They want to improve so they can look past the parts of themselves they're uncomfortable looking at. We don't need to get into the psychology of the shadow today, but that'll be a video in the far, far future. Wink, wink. I can't wink, but whatever. Your reason for change isn't from a place of love, but from a place of hate. And hate can never create an environment for love. Hate simply invites more hate, which is why if you want to foster love, you have to come from a place of love. Some foreshadowing here, but the next video after this will be about love. This video will be about how we disguise self-hate as self-improvement and how it kind of just keeps you stuck in a vicious cycle of never feeling enough no matter what you do. I have a bit of a Zen background, and if you're remotely familiar with Buddhism, you've probably heard of something similar called the cycle of samsara. Some people call it the wheel of samsara, but well, they're not exactly the same. This concept of the wheel of samsara and just self-hatred, but they're kind of eerily similar. And trust me, I was stuck on that roller coaster ride for like 27 years. I'm in my early 30s now. I know I don't look like it, but I am somewhat old, and I'm confident in saying self-hate does end if you know how to become conscious of what that internal mechanism looks like. That's part of what I'll be trying to share with you today. But not completely, it's a really small taste of it. I am someone who loves stories, so I'll share some of myself with you. This video might get a little woo-woo, but I'll make sure to keep the extreme woo-woo stuff out of this. At least to a minimum. It's also a little weird because I used to vlog, not on this channel, but I used to vlog and I actually made a video called something like what it feels like to stop hating yourself. And I just made that on a whim. I used to upload on another channel that was completely unscripted because I was practicing Zen a lot and I wanted to share my findings kind of live, but all the stuff here is kind of scripted, so it flows better and it's easier to understand than me rambling. But anyways, back on topic. I pretty much grew up in hiding, like I hid myself through my intellect. My last video goes more in depth with that, but basically I was in the gifted courses growing up. As long as I could wow people with my mind, they'd never be interested in what was in my heart. I excelled in academia, eventually becoming quite charismatic. So I came off as someone with incredible potential thanks to my grades growing up. Then in my mid-20s, I became a bit of a charmer alongside it. I used to be called that kid who didn't talk all the way to high school. And as an adult, people wouldn't believe me when I told them I used to be shy and completely silent with an anxiety disorder. I developed a personality people liked, but what I wish I cared to develop more was my character. That took a backseat for a long time till I learned people meeting my mask means they never got to meet the real me. Ever since I was a kid, my main goal was to cause no trouble for the people around me. I mean, how could I? I got my work done and left everyone to their own devices. I practically wanted to be invisible. Outside of my assignments and presentations, I had that. I didn't even know who I was outside of being quiet and smart. My teacher in second grade got mad at the class for being unruly and yelled at them, and she said she wished they were a lot more like me, which didn't feel good at all. Like, yeah, the chaos in the classroom sucked. I was on the verge of tears all the time on the inside. Like, trust me, you don't want everyone to be like me. Despite being a loner, I still liked people, and I liked my classmates. So it felt unfair that she was looking down on them during that instance. I know it was simply a moment of frustration. She was a great teacher all around. This isn't a knock at her. She's awesome. For most of my life, I had pretty crippling anxiety. I even had it debilitate me during times in my life other people thought I was calm and composed, when I was actually dissociating while I was doing my routine on autopilot. I'm sure my anxiety came before I was even conscious. I'm not going to go into detail of my family's history in the Vietnam War, and being in concentration camps, that's something I'd rather not talk about, but I'm sure you could see it as sensible. I was probably born in a perpetual state of anxiety. Maybe someone who's actually studied in this area could chime in, but I'm sure I inherited this existential angst from that. So what did I try to do? Well, me trying to get rid of my anxiety manifested in two similar but kind of different ways. I split my path between being a scientist and being a monk. Not like literally, but metaphorically, because I like I like to study a lot. So that's what I mean by a scientist. And the monk was I meditated and did a bunch of spiritual stuff. Eastern spiritual stuff. Nothing Western. It was all Zen, Taoism, stuff like that. Let's get to the practical, not so woo-woo part first. It's also a lot shorter because I think it's less interesting to talk about, but it's one most people will probably be most familiar with. I spent my teenage and early adulthood years studying psychology and how to change my mindset to become a normal person. Or at least like someone people looked up to and liked. I was well read and I wanted answers. And I had answers. The problem was the answers were more of a band-aid than a medicine. Not everything I learned was window dressing, of course, but I felt like they kept me in a perpetual state of, I have to keep learning more so I get even better than I am now. The problem was, self-improvement had no end. It was a forever and always type of situation. Every time I felt even a tinge of discomfort, it meant I needed to just become better. Here's the thing though, I wasn't trying to get better like how you'll get better at a hobby or something you love. It came from a neurotic place. I had to get better so I didn't feel like a failure of a human being. Becoming better felt like I was constantly trying to destroy and recreate myself until I could no longer recognize the ugly parts of who I was. I could only hope to become who I wanted to be. What I didn't realize at the time was what I was doing wasn't improving myself, but actually I was neglecting myself. As a quick aside, I think this problem is quite widespread nowadays. What's the term? Pathologizing, where you take a concept and you make it so you have a diagnosis for everyone based on those conceptualizations you believe. Almost as if people are limited to the concrete ideas you've created in your head instead of a fluid and ever-changing mystery of the human soul. That's one of the pitfalls of intelligence. It can put people into categories and now you neatly have your own prejudice against them based on patterns you believe are universal instead of individual. I mean, it's a lot more nuanced than that, but I kind of want to just get on with it. I'm someone that appreciates nuance, but I also want to stay on topic today. Kind of like how so many professionals are so quick to prescribe a way of life that may work for many, but not for everyone. Especially in this day and age where we're starting to acknowledge people have different neurotypes, and the advice you give would be most effectively tailored to the individual, not the masses. The advice you give to someone who fits the mold of normal won't be effective for someone with ADHD, etc. I know I use the word ADHD. I know I use ADHD a lot in this video. I don't have it, but my friends do, so I have to learn a lot about it. I am probably autistic though. Which is why it's also important to understand intelligence and wisdom are two separate categories. Another topic I'm saving for a future video. Simply put, I was intelligent growing up, sure. You can find concrete evidence of that in my grades. I could write pages on what I've learned and how it could be applied, but knowledge is trapped in the level of theory. What I was never edged towards learning was to exercise a kind of wisdom that can only be developed from actually living. When I was around 14 years old, over summer vacation before starting high school, I learned about meditation. I was a kid of science, but I didn't know how to get into therapy of any kind. I didn't even know how to tell people I wanted therapy. I just wanted a way out of this misery, and doing something was better than nothing. So I learned how to meditate from someone online. While I had the posture down, my intentions were impure, you could say. And I think that's what's sad, is the way I was meditating wasn't an outlier. There were so many people meditating the same way I was, for the same reason I was. My meditation was to turn off all my senses and become blank, empty of anything and everything in my body, so I could ignore my anxiety and every other feeling. So the only thing that could drive me was what my mind believed was valuable. A few minutes eventually turned into 2-hour-long meditation sessions. Maybe you might think that sounds incredible. Oh, he was able to meditate for 2 hours straight as a teenager. But for me now, it's more of a heartbreaking achievement. I'm basically admitting I spent 2 hours a day being completely numb and calling it self-improvement instead of self-neglect. The worst part is, it improves my life from the surface quite dramatically. I was able to do things I was afraid of. I simply ignored the fear and did it. I know. This all sounds like it's supposed to be a great thing I honed in on, but this is almost like the honeymoon to a seductive but destructive lover who's going to take away my sense of self until I no longer know how to listen to my own voice anymore. There were some seeds I wasn't aware of being planted at the same time that would save me when things imploded. I had begun listening to Zen and adjacent teachers. I'm just going to stick to the term Zen since it's one syllable and easy to say, alright? I didn't understand a word that they were saying. Actually, I thought it was all hogwash, but something weird kept happening as I listened to them for moments. I just feel a sense of, all is right in the world. I remember the first spiritual lecture I listened to quite vividly. It was the weekend of the beta for Halo Reach on the Xbox. Weird timing because right now I'm playing the new Halo game. I don't really like it, but that's besides the point anyways. I was listening to a woman talk about her experience of enlightenment. I couldn't take her words in. They sounded far too like pseudo intellectualism to me, but for some reason, her voice soothed me. Like somehow, I was also doing extremely well in Halo Reach. I was in this flow that I've always experienced intermittently, but this time it felt kind of different. Like instead of slipping into a flow state by accident, thanks to the conditions aligning perfectly for it, it almost felt like I slipped into the flow state intentionally and consciously, and it just felt like I just needed the right trigger, and that trigger was listening to these talks. Anyways, school resumed and I didn't continue these Zen talks regularly. I did listen to them every now and again, but rarely. I only put them on because I found out they put me to sleep better than anything else ever did. I still thought it was all a load of pseudo intellectualism, so the content didn't really matter. Just that I was able to sleep so well when I fell asleep to them that I just kept going back every now and again when I needed it. I went all in on trying to study how to fix my anxiety with positive self-talk and affirmations. I was really like knee deep into psychology so I could, neatly understand myself and other people on a safe, intellectual level and try to learn what the ideal person is and how to become that at all cost. And a person who gets nervous, well, the ideal person couldn't possibly feel fear. That was my weakness and I was going to destroy it one way or another. I learned how to shut up the feelings in my body and let the knowledge I learned be the only thing to take center stage. But being negligent to something doesn't mean it isn't there. You're simply turning a blind eye to it. By the time I was 21, I got my first degree. I made money playing video games, which is kind of cool. I had an incredible girlfriend. I mean, she was amazing. Then it all imploded 4 years later. My anxiety got so bad I couldn't leave the house anymore. I was on Abilify, then they put me on Lexapro, but the medicine only made me sleepy, and she left me. Honestly, it's kind of a great thing because I grew a lot from that breakup, and I just physically couldn't do anything. I love the back. She was still incredible, just we weren't really compatible in the long run. But yeah, I physically couldn't do anything, and this is something incredibly stupid you shouldn't do, but I just tossed all my medication away on a whim without weaning off of them. Disclaimer, don't do this. I got really lucky. Most people have pretty dramatic side effects for quitting psychiatric medication abruptly. I just knew I hated the feeling the medicine was doing to me. And don't get the wrong idea, I'm not anti-psychiatry. My friends take them and I don't see them as any less than. I was at a point in my life where I wasn't afraid to die anymore. In fact, I kind of wanted to die. So who cares about what happens to me? I meditated on my own death, and when I woke up, for some reason, I just felt warm. Like, my body was warm, like, all over. And it's like, nothing was wrong. It was just this weird, strange thing that was constantly gracing me with its presence, and then it would leave me at, the worst time. But it gave me this strange confidence that I became almost arrogant that I could do no wrong at the time. And while I was recovering from being off the meds, my only solace were these audiobooks and sessions talking about the end of suffering. That's basically the whole point of Zen and stuff. I still didn't understand what they were trying to communicate, but I knew I just felt safe when I was listening to their voice. I pretty much listened to them for hours a day, sometimes from the moment I woke up to the moment I fell asleep. Usually while I was doing something that didn't require my full attention, like, playing a RPG that was grindy or something. It was my safe haven, despite not knowing what they were saying. I mean, it was in English, so I knew the words, but I didn't understand what their words were trying to tell me. This was all during lockdown, so no one knew I was having a complete breakdown in my room. And for some reason, for moments, here and there, no matter what kind of situation I was in, I just kept arbitrarily having this strange sense of everything's okay. All is right. Even with that wavering sense of peace, I was still pretty sick. I was still in a lot of pain. For some reason, I had this weird belief that if I just had enough knowledge, I would have this safety net to catch me whenever I failed. Although, to be more exact, it was more like if I had the right kind of knowledge, I believe I could never fail again, which, is just kind of delusional, if I'm being honest. Like, I wanted to die, but I also didn't want to end it all just yet. I wanted to go out knowing I did my best first, at least. I was going to try to go all in to fix myself, or die trying, basically. Like, I'm finally going to become someone people actually like. I mean, I didn't realize it at the time because I couldn't let it in, but people did like me. My ex loved me, but I couldn't believe her because I didn't fit my ideas of what an outstanding person should be. Like, I was that guy who self-sabotaged any kind of romance in my life. Like, I've constantly told partners, if you meet a better guy, I'd be okay with you leaving me because I felt like I wasn't good enough to be in a relationship with them. And I didn't realize how annoying it was, but I'd always ask them, why are you with me? Because I'm like, you can do so much better than me. I didn't realize that was actually me pushing them away, but eventually I stopped. But anyways, let's get back to it. I just couldn't let anything she told me in. All I knew was when I thought what an amazing person looked like in my head, that wasn't me. I wouldn't be worthy enough to feel good about myself until I became that person. So basically any compliment I got was like just brushed aside, which, to the other person upset them because they were sharing a bit of themselves with me. I'm just kind of like, I don't believe you. And like shortly after the breakup, I met someone quite strange. She was kind of a flirt, but also quite mean. Like, she was pretty bitter. And she was like always switching between kind of being kind of alluring and kind of spiteful. It drove me more than a little bit crazy, to be honest. So I asked her, like, why are you like always so seductive? But anytime I actually try to close that gap, you're always like pushing me aside rather violently. Not physically, but like emotionally violently. And her answer was pretty simple. If she didn't put on the charm, people would leave her. And she didn't want to be alone, even though she hated them. Yeah, crazy, right? I couldn't take the constant switching between sweet and crazy anymore, so I just ended things. I think the worst part was my loneliness made me adopt her strategy. Like, I was kind of tired of being ghosted constantly. Like, I was never the most outgoing, playful, or flirtatious, but I was already at rock bottom. I had nothing to lose from messing up at this point. My safety net was just to end things if things got too bad. So I practiced, and it was kind of easy, if I'm being honest. I didn't read or study how to become charismatic. I did something else. I simply took a moment, and I paused, and I checked in with myself, and I asked, what would I want to hear most right now? And I kind of flipped it to sound like I was saying what I wanted to be told, but then I told it to the other person and made it about them, and somehow people absolutely loved it. And I wasn't alone anymore. Obviously a bit more nuanced than that, but I'm just trying to dumb it down for the sake of the video. But yeah, I just slowed down and just checked in, like, what did I need the most? And then I made it about them. I don't know how that works, but I don't know. It was strangely effective. Also, part of me kind of doesn't want to talk about it because I'm afraid if someone hears it, they might use that as a manipulation strategy, which I guess it kind of was. I didn't realize it at the time. I wasn't being completely authentic with it. So yeah, I hope no one takes it and tries to use it, but that's what worked for me. And yeah, like, people liked me. They didn't just like me, but sometimes people craved me. Like, people were falling in love with me, and I was like flabbergasted. I didn't believe them either, but it happened several times, and I'm not going to get into detail about kind of the mess I made, but I kind of got addicted to the attention. The problem was, despite all the positive vibes directed at me, I had to keep this act as someone who had their shit together, someone charming like all the time. I couldn't let my guard down. Very few ever saw the real me. I mean, how could they? Like, I rarely saw him either. Despite all the attention, I was so lonely, man. So I kind of just thought having attention would make it so I wouldn't feel lonely anymore, but you can have a lot of attention and still feel like an outcast. Yeah, and sometimes having attention, like the wrong kind of attention, can actually exacerbate your loneliness. On paper, I thought I was doing everything right. I turned into someone people desired, so why did I still hate myself so much? I was in this weird place where I had people in my life, but I didn't feel like they actually cared about me. If some guy is watching this and thinks any attention is good attention, I'll tell you, the loneliest I felt was when I had someone seek me out for sexual comfort, and I didn't know how to say no because I was afraid of hurting her feelings. Like, my first partner used to get upset when I told her I was in the mood, so I kind of just learned to suck it up, especially, the stereotype of guys are always horny. Like, what a load of crap. And after years of sucking it up at times, I just wanted someone to be there for me emotionally. I couldn't really take it anymore. I kind of just pretty much ran away from meeting new people for almost a year. And, well, I ended things obviously with that person. And it was, man, is it weird if I say there was kind of like two people? But anyways, I just kind of focused for like an entire year on getting my second degree. And my only solace were those Zen talks. They pretty much kept me sane. I only listened to the tapes where the teacher had an audience to talk to. I felt this weird sense of compassion radiating from them when they spoke to someone. It was like they had no script. They just trusted something that was never taught. It was as if they did something I was always afraid to do, but never stopped wanting to do. They didn't need reassurance from their minds to confirm they were right. They were pretty comfortable enough in themselves to just follow their heart. And by some miracle, I was sponsored to spend a week with the same women who first got me listening to these talks. It was an incredible week, and I kind of told her about all the crazy stuff I was experiencing inside that made me almost feel like a crazy person. And she kind of just smiled and told me, the fire's been lit, go live your life and watch how it unfolds. Which is weird because everyone else, she had this like full-on conversation and dialogue, and she just said, good, go live your life. And the weird part was, like, even though our talk was just barely like 4 minutes, people came up to me afterwards and they were telling me like whatever I said up there, like it helped clear certain things up with their life. And I was like, that's weird. I was barely up there. Like, I was there for like barely 4 minutes, just kind of giving her like a progress report of the past year and all this crazy weird stuff happening inside of me. And I basically just got the thumbs up from her. I didn't really know what to make of it. In retrospect, I kind of do now, but at the time I was like, that was interesting. And like on the last day of her retreat, I couldn't stop staring off into the lake. It felt kind of weird. Like, I remembered something I'd forgotten, but I wasn't sure what. I also felt kind of dizzy, but in a way that felt kind of pleasurable, like a drowsiness where I couldn't find my balance, but I wasn't afraid of it because it felt like I was weightless, like I was levitating or something, like not literally, but like metaphorically. And when I was like just staring off in the lake, like in my head, I just kept seeing a boat that was stranded in the middle of nowhere. And I just kept wondering, where is it going? And for some reason, like I just had this answer that just said, it can't go anywhere because there's nowhere to go. And it was like the most obvious thing to me. Like, I know it sounds kind of stupid, but when I was just staring off into the water, it was like the coolest thing ever. It was like, of course, there's nowhere to go. This is all it. And then when I got home, I went to go meditate. The moment I got into position, I had like the craziest thing, man. Like, I was considering omitting this, but I feel like it's part of the story, even though I don't know how to talk about it in a way that doesn't sound crazy. But like, so I sat down, I got into position, and it was like I had a vision. Like, I've never had anything like this. It's never happened again, but it was like I saw the entire universe, and the entire universe looked back at me. And at that moment, the universe was conscious And I knew that it was conscious. And then it was clear that the universe knew that I knew that it was conscious. And I just kind of stood up and I couldn't understand why, but like a lot of the pain I was feeling kind of just went away. Alongside that, something weirder happened, but I was unable to experience fear like at all for like 8 months. I was basically fearless. Like a lot of crazy things started to unfold at that time. The weird part was I've heard people talk about their psychedelic experiences and I went, oh, I went through something like that too. Except I was sober. I've never taken a drug of any kind in my entire life. And they either happen randomly out of the blue after I've had that weird little universe thing, or it happened when I was deep in meditation. But, by that time, my meditation practice had changed. I used to magnify and pay attention to any and all the sensations of my body. I think it's called body scanning in Vipassana. I don't want to sound too woo-woo, so I won't share exactly all the crazy stuff I experienced. You can look up the term Nyam, which is spelled Nyam, if you like to explore it further on your own. But it was some of the most pleasurable experiences I've ever had, like bar none. Nothing's ever come close. Better than the best sex I've had, so I either experienced something otherworldly incredible or I just had really shitty sex. Anyways, I didn't mean for this video to be this long. I actually thought this would be one of my shorter ones, but it kind of grew a little bit bigger than I was hoping. I actually kind of dialed it down a bit because the videos I want to work on after this are super important to me. And I know those are going to be super long just because there's a lot to say. But anyways, to end this one, from that moment that I felt the universe and I locked eyes, how romantic. It was as if an entire decade of those Zen talks suddenly just clicked. Like I didn't do anything. It was like a eureka moment. I would constantly be in situations where things just clicked without me trying to learn more about it. Like I wasn't trying to understand it. It was as if like knowing and understanding kind of became two separate things now. I don't know if that makes sense, but the best way I can describe it is I didn't know a lot, but I didn't have to try to know more. I simply understood without needing to know. Like that's the best way I can describe it. And it's a big paradox, but I don't know. It's something you have to experience to understand. And I wasn't familiar with the term at the time, but apparently in Zen, the term for this is Satori. And this is kind of where the video is just going to end. Like, I'll see you next time when we talk about how I started to experience unconditional love from all this weird, crazy Zen stuff. I think why I really want to talk about this is nothing new. You can find other people talking about a lot of these things, but I'm also going to share my life as all this stuff happened. I'm going to try to give concrete examples because I don't think I would have been able to go through all this without the people in my life at the time. Because I feel like a lot of talks, especially Zen talks, are kind of dry or just too impersonal. I think that's the main thing I've even started doing these videos is I'm trying to take all this cool stuff, but also make it relatable by sharing how I went through it alongside my normal everyday life. Because I think there's a really valuable teaching here. It's so esoteric and no one's really simplified it enough where I think this would help out a lot of people if we just didn't make it almost feel like it's gatekept by this language barrier of really flowery woo-woo words. I'm not good with the term flowery. But anyways, thanks for hanging out with me and I'll see you next time. Love you.